Over Memorial Day weekend, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton was impeached by an overwhelming majority of Democrats and his fellow Republicans. He now has the special honor of being just the third state official in Texas history and the first in a half-century to be temporarily removed from office. Paxton is no stranger to corruption. One could argue it's sort of his thing. He's been under investigation in one form or another for nearly a decade. The 20 articles of impeachment include breathtaking charges of abuse of office, adultery, bribery, and unethical behavior. He's set to stand trial in the state Senate, where Republicans outnumber Democrats 19-12. And let's not get it twisted. Texas Republicans voted to impeach not because they've had some come to Jesus about good governance. They did it because they were annoyed that Paxton got caught and was trying to make Texas taxpayers pay for his $3 million mistake. Right on cue, Donald Trump rode to Paxton's rescue, attacking state Republicans for impeaching him. Paxton and Trump have had a symbiotic relationship. Back in 2020, Paxton sued to challenge the results in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Before that, he successfully sued the state's most populous county, Harris County, which happens to be heavily Democratic, to prevent them from using universal mail-in ballots. And he was pretty proud of it.
We had 12 losses that we had to win. And if we had lost one of them, like if we lost Harris County, Trump won by 620,000 votes in Texas. Harris County mail-in ballots that they wanted to send out were 2.5 million. Those were all illegal, and we were able to stop every one of them. Had we not done that, we would have been in the very same situation. We would have been on election night. I was watching election night, and I knew when I saw what was happening in these other states that that would have been Texas. We would have been in the same boat. We would have been one of those battleground states that they were counting votes in Harris County for 3 days, and Donald Trump would have lost the election.
While Texas House Republicans impeach that guy, they continue to target Democratic counties in the state. Governor Abbott is expected to sign several bills into law that would, among other things, allow the Secretary of State, who is handpicked by the governor, to redo any election in Harris County. Joining me now is Matthew Dowd, MSNBC political analyst and former candidate for lieutenant governor of Texas. Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee will be joining us in a moment. But I do want to start with you, Matthew, because this revelation, this braggadocio by Greg Abbott, the corrupt and indicted and now impeached Attorney General of Texas, it actually answered a question for me. Why is Texas, which has a majority-minority population, so red? Harris County is 4.6 million of the state's 29 million people. It's the largest county by far. Dallas County, the next largest county, is about 2.6 million people. If you control it and suppress its votes, voila, Republicans can't lose statewide. Your thoughts?
Well, Texas, I mean, it's just one of many instances where they've made Texas one of the, I think it's the hardest state to vote in the country when you combine registration with that. That wasn't the case 25 years ago before Republicans took power. Texas used to be the 14th ranked state in ease of voting, and now it's 50th in the ease of voting. All of this has to do with the changing nature of Texas. And I'll give you one interesting fact. Between the 2020 census and between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, Texas added 4 million people. 4 million people were added in Texas. 95% of the people that were added were non-white. 95% of the increased population was Hispanic, Black, and Asian in Texas. They understand demographics. And so instead of doing, I mean, what's amazing about what Ken Paxton said, which is, I want to make it harder for people to vote. That's basically what he said. I don't want to give the people the opportunity to vote. I want to make it hard. That is the case in Texas and other states, as you know, because we've had this conversation. They can't win an election that looks like Texas. If the election day looked like Texas, they can't win. They could appeal to, people of non-white Texans. They don't want to. And so what do? They rig the system so the election doesn't look like Texas.
I mean, and just down to the fact that Texas, we counted it up today. They have like over 200 different districts, some as small as 89 people in some of these rural districts. And then you've got these 3 or 4 giant districts that have 1 million or more people that are the more blue tinged districts. That is how you construct a state where you make most of the districts these tiny little rural districts. Let's just look at Harris County. Statewide, Trump versus Biden. Statewide, it was tight, 5.9 million for Trump, 5.2 million for Biden. But in Harris County, Biden beat Trump, 900 918,000 to 700,000. Go back to 2016, it's also close, 4.6 million statewide to 3.8. I think people don't understand that's not a huge margin. You know, Democrats are pretty competitive, but in Harris County, the Democrats win. They are now attempting to dissolve the Harris County election administrator. This is the Republicans who impeached Paxton, not Paxton himself. Empower the Secretary of State to seize election authority from county officials. Authorize a new election if there are good causes to a recurring pattern of problems. They can redo the election, pull Texas out of the Electronic Registration Information Center where you can get voting data, and increase the penalty for illegal voting from misdemeanor to a felony. They are rigging this state, Matthew.
Well, you know, it's fascinating. As you know, I used to run campaigns in Texas back years ago, and it was common, you know, thought is Harris County, Houston, is going to vote Republican. And so you figure out the margins you need there and then the margins you need in another place. Dallas County was the same way. Another county, let me give you a prediction. The next legislative session, they're going to go after Dallas County. That'll be the next place they go. And what's happened is the changing nature of Texas is Harris County is now from a red county to a blue county. Dallas County is from a red county to a blue county. And so what they're doing is sort of de-emphasizing or making it them give those counties, larger counties, less power in the state. Because if what they voted was equal to the rest of the counties, the small counties, Democrats would win. And on that data you showed from the 2020 election, when 5.9 million voted for Trump and 5.5 million Texans who were registered didn't vote. 5.5, that's unregistered. 5.5 million Texans in the presidential election in 2020 were registered and did not vote. That's the problem.
Speaking of Harris County, let me bring in Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who represents Harris County. You have hopefully been able to hear what we've been talking about, Congresswoman. How does that materially impact people in Harris County that 4.6 million people are essentially disenfranchised, and the Attorney General, the impeached Attorney General of your state, is bragging about doing it?
It is a horror of proportions that one cannot imagine. And that means that all of the fight that was ever made in the civil rights movement and before, the lives lost, the civil rights soldiers, gone to naught. Because here we are in 2023 with conspicuous denial of voting rights. Added to that, on June 1st, the state will take over a duly elected school board for the Houston Independent School District. They will be thrown out, and there will be an appointed board of managers that no one knows who they are. So from overturning our elections by one person, the governor of the state of Texas, at his own will, by taking away our whole administrative infrastructure that the voters have voted on by voting on the public officials who designed it, we're basically extinguishing our constitutional rights to vote, because I believe the 15th Amendment gives us a framework for voting. And I certainly think the 13th Amendment indicated to African Americans that they're no longer enslaved and they have the rights and privileges of a citizen of the United States. This includes, however, Hispanics, African Americans, progressive, women.